Become a patron at www.patreon.com/Golden Era Bookworm for hard to find books, scans of rare photos and articles on the golden era of bodybuilding. Hi everybody, Golden Era Bookworm here. Today I'd like to get back to the topic of building tendon strength and present the idea of using a limited range of motion to develop tendon strength. In the past, I've detailed exercises used both in the silver and bronze eras for developing strength, and in these eras of natural drug-free bodybuilding, there were many effective methods for developing strength, and one of the most effective is the one I'm going to talk about today. I'd like to firstly start off by explaining why it's effective. Firstly, full compound movements, which may be performed in a strict fashion, do develop strength, and there is no doubt about that. However, what do you do when you are at the point where you begin to reach a plateau in strength, and when you find that even swinging and cheating a little bit doesn't cause your form to resemble something torturous and dangerous? I mean, we've all seen it in the gym. Well, the Bronze and Silver era legends devised a method of limiting the range of motion and developing strength by performing partial reps of strength-producing compound exercises. And that is exactly what we are going to be addressing today. Before introducing the partial compound exercises that are the topic of today, we need to address the importance of this technique, and it has to do with potential injuries. And this is something we're all afraid of, we have to admit. Now, time and time again, we see or hear of athletes who injure themselves, breaking their tendons and ligaments because of overexertion. One great recent example is of Callum von Moger, a very famous Instagram and YouTuber, who has recently snapped both his bicep tendons and injured his knee from memory. And I mean, for many drug-abusing athletes, tendons break very easily. And the reason is that, although artificially produced through performance-enhancing drugs, their muscles end up being stronger than their tendons. And this is another reason why I always promote staying natural. I think it's a smarter thing to do, because you don't really understand how strong your muscle can get, especially if you are artificially making it stronger and stronger. Your tendons actually have no time to catch up. However, the whole talk about performance-enhancing drugs is another topic and not the topic of this particular video. Firstly, let's look at the function of the tendon. It provides, remember, an anchorage point of the muscle to the bone, while the muscle itself moves the bone at the joint, allowing movement. Now in bodybuilding, if we look at bodybuilding versus weightlifting, bodybuilders are concerned with muscle growth in proportion, of course, which is the goal. And what happens is, whether natural or performance enhanced, the muscles get stronger and much stronger than the tendons. Whilst when we compare it to weightlifting, the tendons predominate in these motions and are always stronger than the muscle. And I say this because if you ask a weightlifter, do you want to build more muscle? They'll say no, because most of them want to grow stronger at their own weight class without necessarily putting on more muscle. Of course, a weightlifter could get stronger by developing more muscle because that's their weak link, but they choose not to. Instead, for bodybuilding, this is not a problem. We do want to get bigger. And tendon strength is the one thing that is lacking, and therefore to get bigger, once you reach a plateau, instead of reaching for the needle or the supplement shop or whatever, like so many of us lost individuals do, one should instead focus on developing the weak link. And the weak link in our case, especially natural bodybuilders, is tendon strength. Tendon strength, structural strength is what needs to be worked on. Now, there are many lessons to be learned from the strongmen of the past. I've already presented several exercises from the silver era, such as continental lifts, harness lifts, and others, and also as well from the bronze era, methods from then, such as the odd lifts performed then, such as the bent press and many other techniques. Truly, the strongmen from the silver and bronze era have much to teach us trainees from nowadays. And I mean, most of us are really ignorant of the steroid-free methods of the past. These are the methods that were used back then when there were no drugs available. Not only did the strongmen do these exercises, but they understood why they did them, why they chose to perform them, and they did this in a systematic fashion too. They realized that when a plateau in muscular growth was reached, it was time to develop strength in the joints using 1 or 2 arm lifts or leg lifts of all different kinds. And although these included full range of motion movements, they also used partial reps, working a limited range of motion which focused developing strength at the joint and the joint only. And by strengthening the anchor point of the muscle, they understood that this later would pay dividends in more massive muscular growth. This is so important to understand. So now that I've explained the importance of partial reps and range of motion, understanding that this leads to strengthened tendons and ligaments and basically a stronger anchor at the bone, we will definitely understand that the muscles are strongly supported now. Now we can actually start to increase the force of the movement. Once you've developed your tendons and your ligaments at the joints, now you can then go back to increasing the poundage in the bench press or in the squat or in the deadlift or even in your isolation movements, because that's the whole idea. Using these partial reps and limited range of motion will allow you to use greater weight in your exercises after you do a cycle of, let's say, a few months, 2 to 3 months, I would say. So the most important method to actually perform partial reps and limited range of motion exercises is using the power rack, and that's exactly what we're going to use today as an example, is the exercises performed on the power rack in the silver era. So one of the best exercises to start this topic of conversation is this very first exercise called unracking the bar. It's very simple. You basically grab a barbell as you would for a front squat, as shown in this diagram here of the rack, be it a squat rack or power rack, and you basically place the bar on your shoulders, bending at the knees, and you stand up and hold it for a maximum of 6 seconds. And you could repeat this for 5 or 6 times, and that's basically the workout. Of course, the whole idea of this particular exercise is to strengthen the tendons of the arms and the legs. And just like any other silver era program, the whole idea, of course, is to progressively increase the poundage in this case, or the time used. So if you can initially only hold it for a couple of seconds, over the weeks you'd want to try and hold it for 5 or 6 seconds. That's a very good hold, and then you can work on increasing the poundage. Now the second exercise that I'd like to talk about is the partial curl. This is another holding exercise, just like the first one. You want to hold the weight, mostly for time. And this is going to develop your tendons in all your body. For example, with the partial curl, you're going to hold for time, developing the shoulders, the arm tendons, as well as the back tendons. Again, you're going to grab a barbell here, and you're going to work 2 parts of the curl movement. That is the barbell, you're going to hold it below the halfway point and hold for 6 seconds and repeat for up to 5 different repetitions. And then you're going to also repeat this by holding the barbell above the halfway point for 6 seconds and repeating for 5 repetitions. Now, besides these 2 exercises, which are mainly holds, there are another couple of exercises I'd like to talk about, which are mainly just partial presses. These are parts of the military press. Of course, we can't work the full range of motion here. These are only partial range of motions. Again, these work the arm and shoulder tendons. One of the first ones you can use, for example, is having the barbell at the shoulders, and you would only press a few inches as shown in the diagram and repeat 5 times again. This is not necessarily holding for time. This is just trying to press as hard as possible for a few inches using a very heavy weight, which really will help in developing the tendon strength at the beginning of the motion. You can also work it at the sticking point, which is where the bar would start, for example, in the power rack at the height of your head or at the top of your head. And again, try and press as hard as possible, pressing the barbell above your head which is much force as possible, only for a few inches of course. Another partial press exercise that can be used effectively, again repeated for about 5 times, not necessarily holding the weight, it's just a pressing motion. Finally, as a last exercise, we have the partial lockout, where you have the barbell at a height of almost full extension of your arms overhead, hence it's called a partial lockout. You probably just go a few inches below that, maybe 3 or 4 inches, and by bending the knees and the arms under the weight, you would try and lift and press and straighten the arms as much as possible, again developing the strength in the tendons there. Again repeating for 5 times. It's not necessarily a hold either, these are pressing motions. So we've got then several exercises that work partial presses and partial holds for developing the tendons in the whole body. So I hope you've enjoyed these exercises that I've presented from the silver era, these exercises that work on strengthening the tendons and the joints, which are very important to include in your strength cycles, especially when you've plateaued on your muscular growth. I hope these can help you. If you've enjoyed watching these videos on building ligament and tendon strength, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't to the Golden Era Bookworm, let me know your comments, and thank you again for watching. And I hope that you can develop the strength like Reg Park here, who dares to lift a car. One of these cars back then must have weighed much more than the cars nowadays. They were full metal back then, and I mean he could dare to lift a car there and help his fellow man. Such were the strength of these strongmen from the silver and bronze era. If you wish to purchase any courses from the silver era, I have one on developing strength from Reg Park, for example, on my website www.goldenerabookworm.com. Or if you'd like to support my work, you can donate via PayPal or become a patron at www.patreon.com/Golden Era Bookworm, where I upload articles and photos from the silver and bronze era of bodybuilding as well as books. And I'll soon be featuring this article on Patreon as well. Anyway, that's it for me. This is the Golden Era Bookworm. Bye for now. So you can purchase the strength and bulk training course for weightlifters and bodybuilders by Reg Park, as well as other silver era and bronze era courses on my website www.goldenerabookworm.com.
Hi everybody, I just want to recommend this phenomenal book, Vince's Secret Locker, volume number 2 by Carl Coyne. I've been looking at this for about 4 weeks and I can't put it down. If you get a chance, check it out. He also has a part 1 that I highly recommend also. Vince was the trainer of the stars and had an amazing, interesting gym that today there's still not equipment like it around. It was all made out of wood. He'll be on our radio show coming up probably in the next couple weeks or so. Have a great day, and again, highly recommend this book.